Hello, everybody. My name's BTK Motoman, aka Dick, member of Bravo Team Kilo. It's me and my son's YouTube channel. I haven't really done an introduction video yet, but figured we'll do it here, especially as I'm going to start making some content and posting some content related to the attack helicopters in Battlefield 6. So here's me doing a takeoff in Afghanistan. Real cool. And right into the sun, cavalry. Here's my handsome ass. But I did serve in the Army for about 15 years, and I was an attack helicopter pilot for 8 of that. Got out about 4 years ago to pursue other career opportunities, and I'm still flying, just not helicopters right now. So I thought I was in a unique position to explain some of the things in the game, as well as how the helicopter flies and some strategies that I have. I know it's probably not going to line up with some of the probably what we'd say meta or some of the best pilots in the game, but I kind of fly how I was trained, so I stay kind of low and I fly really fast, and that's how I like it. This video is going to solely focus on the attack helicopter, and then as I progress through it, the series, it'll go from flying it to more advanced weapon systems, and also some differences and similarities between the actual aircraft and the ones we fly in the video game, right? So start off with my loadout, and then we'll go into settings. So starting off right now, I'm running heavy rockets, aim guided, all the mandatories, emergency repair, and thermals. I do change once in a while depending on what's kind of the map I'm up on or who I'm up against. But generally, I'll start with heavies just because they're my favorites. I think they're extremely well suited for armored targets, obviously, but I also use them pretty well against aircraft and ground targets. I do find that having a few of them matters significantly on many engagements. So I recommend running heavies only if you're focusing on ground targets like tanks. But on maps where I'm dealing with a lot of air targets or the little birds just like annoying me, light rockets work pretty well against them, as well as the other attack helicopter. But I don't find them necessary against the other attack. Aim guided, I'm not the best shot with these. I haven't really figured them out. I'm not getting the same results, I guess, with them. But personal preference, I think they're a good balance between both heavy and light rockets. You get more per the tubes, and yeah, if you just figure out how to aim them right, I guess they'd probably be pretty good. After that, I'm running the aim guided right now. I like the aim guided over the locks just because it gives you a lot more versatility in the match. Um, if you're not good with the aim guided, I will have like a separate video on how to get good or how to practice. Um, it's going to bring you from an okay pilot to a good pilot, right? So you'll be able to take out both tanks and enemy aircraft. Unfortunately, with the lock guided, unless you have someone lazy, you can't designate or you can't engage ground targets, which is the main reason why I don't use them. They are useful against jets. However, with the new two-seaters, they have a lot more ability to flare, so I haven't really been able to get great shots with these. So I rarely run them. There are very few situations that I will, and I'll talk about those in the video later. Next, you got your mandatory flares, emergency repair. That's a mandatory run for me. I don't ever switch that. Target detection, I've tried it out. It just doesn't give you any real advantage that a good front seater can't give you. So running it's just kind of a waste. Emergency repair, that's going to save your life in so many different situations. Thermal optics, that's my go-to right now. It replaced improved armor for me. Just because having a good front seater, a gunner, and working together as a team, you can really run the match with this. So definitely recommend thermal optics. Heavy warhead, it was meta when the game first came out, but now it's in my mind with the increase of the aim-guided shoulder-fired rockets and the tows from the Bradley. I don't recommend running it just because you're so slow. It's really easy to shoot you down. There's no real benefit there. I wish they took away the maneuverability because I think heavy warheads is a comparable option with thermal optics because thermal optics doesn't have any negatives. But right now, that's how it is. Interference, it doesn't really give you enough buffer compared to anything else. You're getting like 0.3 seconds of extra lock time, which isn't enough to do anything with. And then improved armor. Weird thing about improved armor, it's only good against infantry on the ground. It has no protection against crew serve weapons, which is what it really needs to be. If they wanted to bring this back into the meta, I'd say make the little birds 50 and the minigun make this so it would counter that a little bit, and then I would probably consider running that in situations where I just couldn't get a gunner. But as of right now, it's just useful against ground infantry targets, which you really shouldn't be near enough anyway. And then the others, right? So you got the radar system that's mandatory now since the update, and then the remote cannon. It should be about a 25 millimeter cannon in real life, but they didn't bother labeling that. And then the remote weapon, which in my mind, this is a Hellfire missile, and that's what they're showing on the rails. So the laser guided variant probably, but you could technically also be the radar guided variant because we are running an FCR. And running a bit of customs here, and I will recommend a few things. Helicopter control assist, you have to turn that off if you want to be a halfway decent pilot. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of baby you and keep you safe, and it's going to really cost your maneuverability. It even says it in the stats. So take that off. Helicopter control sensitivity, I recommend lowering this, which is opposite of what I usually do. And the reason I lowered it is because I found myself overcorrecting a lot on my shots. I actually might drop it down a little more. I'll probably play with that a little more later. But right now I went down from, I think, 100 to 70, and my toe shots are getting better. So I feel like 70 or lower is kind of where you need to be. Vehicle aim sensitivity, same thing, same reason. Over controlling, so I like it a little bit lower, so I drop that down. And third person field of view, keep that as wide as possible so you can get the most view as possible, right? I must have gunner. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the key vehicle aim input curve. I run in the Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4.
For the helicopter,
Whatever your most
up on the
recent
screen is what
battlefield
I got
is, or if you don't
currently
have a
set.
recent
I'm
one,
not
just
sure what
run
I
the current one.
changed because it doesn't give me an indicator, but
That's what I would
for
do.
me this is normal.
I've just been
right?
playing
So
for
right
so
button
long.
is my
Battlefield
ping.
4 feels natural to
I
me, so
definitely recommend having it accessible.
everything
and
else
then I
looks
got clear
standard.
is up on the
Weapon
D-pad.
zoom, I
Left is
toggle
the
that
equipment
off.
slot 1,
Everything
2
else
is equipment slot 2, and then
default.
also
So nothing
imperative
really too
is the
special.
free look button because I'm going to bind those to the back of the controller. So I bind it to the bumpers, and the large bumpers are my free look, so I can go into free look really quickly. If I hold the large bumpers, it pings the target, and then if I want to flare or chaff and then emergency repair, I have those bind to the little bumpers on the back side of the controller, just a little bit faster reaction time, and I'm not taking my fingers off any sticks in order to action a button, and I can continue flying while I'm taking fire. The KK's firing range, it's a custom range, um, and it's going to be able to do pretty much everything you need to do. I will say the one thing I haven't figured out, or maybe it doesn't exist, is how to change vehicle settings in the game. So I've been having to back out of the test range a lot and come back into the match. When you spawn in here on the helipad with all the different helicopters, tanks, and jets in the background. Right on the D-pad, I'm a controller player, so everything's going to be referenced on controller. But if you're a PC player, you know you got your equivalents, so just use that. I'm going to turn on infinite health for vehicles and reserve ammo, and then up at vehicle arena. Right now, I'll just put some infantry on. Um, I'll leave them stationary just for some practice there, and then we'll just do small buildings currently. And that's all we need for now, because we're just going to keep it really basic. This video, I don't mean to insult anyone's intelligence. I'm sure a lot of people have already played and flown the Apache, and probably a couple other tryhards out there like me. But yeah, so the AH64, I can tell you from real world experience, this is very close. Everything on here is very close to what it is in real life. From the fire control radar to the rotors actually spinning the right direction, the TADs here in the front. You got the EFABs. We don't have AIM missiles in the actual aircraft, but I think that's a gameplay mechanic really more, even down to the exhaust system. So very realistic, very close to the real thing in real life, which I like. Getting in the cockpit, they could have done a better job in the cockpit, but it is what it is. I'll explain all this at the end of the video because it's not really important for this part. What is important is the HUD that they do provide us. So I want to talk about the HUD, right? So at the top you have the compass rose. Currently we're facing to the west. If I turn to the right, it's facing north, and then if I turn all the way back to the south, I am facing 180, right? So to the left is 180, and then behind me is east at 090. I'll have another video on combat callouts because I noticed that's a problem a lot of people have. But for this video, no, it's not really required. Come back and land, and we'll talk about some of the other things, or just hover actually. So if we go down, the next thing I see is the horizon bar. That's showing us where level is. It's not necessarily showing us where the horizon is, but it's a good reference as far as if you're climbing, descending, accelerating, or decelerating, right? So here we're level flight, level hover, I'm at 6 knots, and the helicopter's not moving too much right now. But you can influence how the helicopter moves by moving the reticle, the center reticle, which is the cross, either above or below the horizon line. So now that I got about 100 feet of altitude, if I pitch the nose down and I bring the nose below the horizon line, I'll start accelerating and descending. And if I pitch the nose up above the horizon line, I'll start decelerating and climbing. Come back down here. On the right hand side, that number that's climbing right now and descending, climbing again, that is our altitude indicator. So believe this is in meters because there's no way that's 100 feet. It's an arbitrary number, just gives us some indication of how high we are. One thing to note, 25 feet, if you look at the radar as I descend, that's where I drop into below radar range. So 25, I'll use that number a lot because it's going to directly relate to surviving this helicopter in the game. I think I landed on something there. Alright, moving down, we'll go to the left side. You have 0 KTS, which is knots. As I accelerate, see it goes up. Interesting enough, you cannot decelerate enough and go backwards to the point where your airspeed goes negative. It's just now I'm flying backwards at 10, 20 knots, right? And that's similar to what the actual helicopter would show also. Flares ready, so when I pop my flares, that'll go to CDN, which I'm not really sure what that stands for, but I'm sure that's just reload. And then emergency repair is disabled. So those are both my equipments, right? And next to that, you have Alpha 1.5. That's a auto range 1.5. In the actual helicopter, if I'm looking somewhere, that number would change based off my line of sight. It's using a trigonometry. It's using trigonometry to figure out where I am in space and also where I'm looking. But in the video game, it doesn't work. It always says Alpha 1.5, which is more similar to actually manual. I would call that manual range. You could do that, so it'd be M1.5. That's just telling the helicopter that all of my firing solutions need to use a 1.5 kilometer range. There's also laser range for the front seater. That is also not in the game, but it would say L 1.5. And then the more accurate way that we use it in real life is nav range. So I'd set a navigational waypoint, I'd turn that to a target, and then the helicopter would compute my distance to that target from the nav range. And it's a lot more accurate than auto. To the right, I have heavy rockets on the bottom right there. And then next to it, I have the aim-guided missile, or the tow missile. The center mass, this is one thing I really wanted to talk about because a lot of people I don't think understand what this box in the middle center is. It actually does something. At the top there, you have a ball in 2 gates. That's your trim ball. So if I spin the helicopter, let me get a little higher, that trim will come out. And if I kick in a little bit of rudder, it'll swing out of the box. The helicopter automatically tries to keep the ball centered, so that is actually fairly accurate, but it's not too useful. But it is a nice little feature that they put in the game. And then below that's what I really wanted to talk about, your field of view box. So this box is showing where you and your gunner are looking. The pilot is the box part, so if I do free look cam, I can move it around. See, it goes all the way through my constraints, which aren't exactly accurate, but there you go. 120 degrees left and right limits. And then the gunner as well, I'll have to switch seats. But as I move the gunner around, you see the ball is moving now because that's the gunner's line of sight. And how that's really useful and comes into play is when I'm flying around, I can tell where my gunner is looking in first person. Exactly. So as I match my box with his, and I really can't show you without a gunner, but I can move my line of sight to his, and we can engage the same target. So one call out we would use in the actual helicopter is target my line of sight, and it cuts back on all this direction. So normally, if say we don't use that, we're saying, hey, I got a target 060 200 meters, and then it would be my job to look that way. And I like that a lot better than saying right side or left side. You can use that, but it's a little bit more difficult because maybe I'm doing some kind of weird spin or something and trying to dodge incoming fire, and now I'm trying to figure out when he called that, what was my right side, as opposed to it is always going to be north and it's always going to be east on the map, so I can find targets a little faster. Below that says assist off. Let's say assist on if you're using it. Shouldn't be though. And then below that is your seat in the Apache. One thing I do like is in the gunner seat, it gives you a little gunner icon and it shows where my cannon is pointing, as well as the ball. And sometimes that can be a little bit easier if you're flying around to figure out which way you want to start your turn. Because when you're flying, you want to turn so you keep your gunner on target at all times. So if the gunner is looking at that building, I would want to make left turns right now around that building, and I kick it out of trim a little bit so I can see it as well. And now we're just going to be holding this hover, and he's going to be engaging targets at alpha. So how do we do that? We really need to start with the basics. So every match, the helicopter is going to start on the ground. So go ahead and land, which isn't a great skill in the game, but when you take off, you're going to do, let me talk about the 3 controls. So you have collective, which is your up and down. That's going to be your left stick. And then you have cyclic, which is going to be your right stick. So forward, aft, bank right, or roll right, roll left, right? And then on top of that, your left stick also has your yaw. So left stick, yaw, right stick, yaw. So those are your 3 main axes, or flight control axes. So when you start off the match, you're going to be landed. It's going to put you into third person. Go ahead and switch to first, pick up, and then nose the aircraft over. Now you want to stay kind of low for this to gain airspeed if you can, unless there's mountainous terrain. And then once I'm about 100 knots, I'll start pitching up. The helicopter in real life, depending on the model, is only going to go up to about 140 knots. in straight and level flight. In a dive, you can get up to 200 knots, but it's a little bit different flight modes. So what I want you to practice on when you first get in the helicopter is just doing a little bit of pattern work to a runway, and then taking off and landing. And landing is actually important, even though it's an attack helicopter, because there's several situations where you might take critical damage and you need to land to repair. So if I took damage right now, I'd roll it on, and as you land, you want to hold back on the collective stick, the left stick. You can get out, and then you can start repairing. Get above the critical repair point, and then take back off again, and then stay low. One of the bigger mistakes I see is taking off in a near vertical. And I think that's a bad idea because you're immediately unmasking yourself for the other team. And if it's a halfway decent attack pilot, he's going to be looking at the radar to see who's popping up off radar. So a lot of guys, they'll come out here and they'll do this like hovering climb for takeoff. I would recommend avoiding that, unless you're like Big Dog and you know the other attack helicopter is already suppressed. You really just want to stay low, especially at the beginning of the match. Do some reconnaissance, find where the enemy is, and then there's about 100 knots, and then I'll pitch it up. And it'll give me a good climb. So practice that, and you want to be able to land and take off in both first and third person mode. If you notice, I actually prefer to fly in first for the most part, and I use third person more as a situational awareness tool. I'm actually one of the weirdos that wish they just take third person most view out of especially the flying vehicles, maybe not the jets, but definitely the helicopters. So once you master taking off and landing, the next thing I want you to work on is strafing. So you can strafe this runway left and right, and you can do it in both modes. It's going to be easier in third person to start off just because you can see where the runway is. Get back over it. And you want to be able to hold yourself over this the entire time. I know I messed my first one up, but it's alright. Try again. Also, a little yaw as possible. And it helps to practice moving forward and flying forward and backwards. Just hanging out over the runway. After you do that, switch to first person. Make sure you can do it in first person. For parameters, you kind of want to set altitudes for yourself. So I like to do 25 plus or minus 10. So if I can stay within that 15 to 35 range, I call that a go. Just because it's a video game, you're not going to be super accurate. See, it came off a little bit. It's harder in first person just being able to see where the runway is. So maybe if you keep a little bit out of your front door there, you can do it a little easier. After you do a little bit of that, let's start on flying backwards, because that's a skill as well that you're going to use a lot for defensive. Caught the lip. So set yourself up, fly a little backwards in first person. What you're trying to do is not touch the tail while keeping your nose up in the air. Do little turn action, and you want to stay below 25 feeder meters, whatever we're calling that, right? So try not to touch, because it's going to cause damage to the helicopter, and try to stay below 25 so you don't get locked on. After you've done that a couple of times, switch to first person. Get back over the runway and do it in first person. Getting too high. Come back down, getting too low. And after that, kind of put it together. Flying, you want to stay fluid. You don't want to stay flying in one straight and level motion. And if you're going to climb, sometimes you need to, but remember how to return to cover. So climb up. I like to be at about 150 feet. And let's say I'm engaging somebody with rockets, and then I get locked and I have to return to cover. So I'll turn around and then fly back. And you can practice those. It's a little disorienting in the desert, just because you don't know where the ground is. And then I'm just returning to cover as fast as possible. Once I'm below 25, I can level it out. You could even do that lower. I could probably get that done at 100 feet. Oh yeah, easy. Probably even do it at 50. But I'm not trying to push myself on these videos. Just practice these. That's a return to cover, right? So if you're getting engaged, locked, and then I'm going to return to cover. I'll show you in third person how that looks. And then return to your position, right? Next one I want to talk about is turns around a point. So pick a point out here in the desert, or what I like to do is a vehicle. So I'm going to spawn in a vehicle real quick. Go ahead and spawn us a IFE. I don't want him moving. He needs to be stationary. That's just for a reference point for us. So if it turns around a point, I'm going to come around the bot, and I want to keep him in my window screen. You don't have to necessarily keep your crosshairs on him, but you want to keep your keep him in the center of your window screen as much as you can, and then you're just going to rotate around him. Also, if you want to set an altitude target, somewhere between 25 and 35 is good, just like earlier. Do some spins around him. And then once you're comfortable doing that, switch it around and do the other way. For me, doing this to the right is harder. So get used to doing both. As you can see what we're doing here. Now, it's not a great strategy to use in combat. I wouldn't recommend doing that when you're coming up on a target. That's just a way to increase your muscle memory, as we call it. In flight school in the Army, it takes about 14 to 20 hours to learn how to hover. So don't feel like one play session you should be getting this done. And maybe come in, practice for like 10-15 minutes, and then go join a game, try to get the helicopter, practice for a little more, and then keep doing that, rinse and repeat, and your body will build up the muscle memory how to fly this thing. And anyone can fly. It's just, are you putting in the work, I guess. Do it in third person. Pick it up. This does come in useful to do for maybe short bursts to destroy a tank or something whose elevation can't go higher than 35 degrees. He can't shoot you down, and you can just get free shots on him. Next thing I want to talk about is just some free flight and obstacle avoidance. So we're going to come to the edge of the range here, and I'm going to turn on tall buildings. And what we're going to do is just do kind of a time trial. You can set a time. I'm not going to set a time, but as fast as you can, you're going to fly through the buildings, and you want to zig back around. And you want to be able to do that in both first and third person view. So come on here. You can turn on tall buildings. And what we're going to do is, first we're going to fly through obstacles. I like to fly through obstacles in first person. I just have an awareness of where the helicopter is. And just zoom through there as low as you can, as fast as you can. Just like that. Hey,
It's good
everybody,
muscle
thanks for watching
exercise,
part
and you
one
can
of
go
the
other
video
ways. You know,
series here.
just kind of
Hope I explained
zigzag
some
across.
questions people had. Here's a
I'll avoid
picture of
doing
the
that in
actual
third.
backseat of the
Don't mess the
Apache
camera
here.
up.
I'm in Afghanistan.
See,
I'm
I'm much
definitely going to do
slower
another
in
video
third
talking
person
about
just
some of
because I
the
can't.
similarities of the cockpit because
I
the
don't. I don't know.
cockpit's
I
the
don't
worst
feel like I'm
part. To
flying.
be honest, they
I feel
didn't
like
do a
I'm
great job at replicating anything.
observing. I don't
But
know. So
hey,
I do it a little
we don't
slower
spend that
in
much time
third.
in that viewpoint anyway, so I don't really blame them too much. But I'll continue putting out videos. I hope maybe every week or two. I got most of the footage already recorded. I just got to stitch it all together. But if you have any questions, you can hit me up on my Discord. That's on the channel. Um, or you can just send a DM or comment on this video and I'll try to reply to it. Thank you.